Hello, everyone, and welcome to Six Figure Souls Doing Good and Making Money. This is a very special season 7, highlighting my co-authors of our new collaborative book project, The Ultimate Guide to Becoming a Successful Soul Professional. I am your host, Camille Miller. I am also lead author of the book and pioneer for the soul professional movement. Today, we are interviewing Candace Freedenberg, founder of Untapped Potential, an amazing organization we're going to talk about. Thank you, Candace, for being my co-author and part of this podcast today.
Thank you, Camille. I'm happy to be here. This is exciting.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to start off with just getting our listeners to know who you are and your background, because I know you're a former engineer and now you run this amazing organization helping women get back to work with their careers. And let's talk about that a little bit. You want to give us a little bit of background and bring us kind of up to date to what you're doing?
For sure. And as you said, I'm a former engineer, worked at companies like IBM and KODAK, not only have a number of patents in engineering, but launched new technologies and new businesses and really had that entrepreneurial bent within big corporations.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, one of the things that, when I launched Untapped Potential, I was trying to solve another problem, but I didn't even identify that I was one that stayed at home and got out of the workforce. I was busy. I was in the thick of things, focused on my 3 kids and running PTO organizations like women do, on liaison to the Board of Finance in the town, just different things. And I didn't think of myself as someone trying to get back into the workplace, but I saw this, lack of use of this great human capital that's well educated, and that's really the spark that got me to do this mission of supporting women getting back to their caliber.
Wow, amazing. So tell us a little bit about the organization so everyone understands what you do, and then we'll talk a little bit about your journey to getting there or scaling it.
For sure. And while we talk a lot about the value of this human capital and women that need that support to get back to their caliber, really it's a two-sided model. So we support businesses, and our tagline is advancing business, reigniting careers. And what I learned out of all this is that really our infrastructure of business and support systems, the fabric of society, doesn't support dual income couples, even though we largely have dual income couples. So we're really trying to advance business in their understanding of flexibility required during that short time of caregiving years, really encouraging them to value men going in that direction of equality in the home, a lot of stuff to support how to welcome women back, make them feel good about their service that they've done as caregivers, and get them to that potential. So it is serving businesses, and businesses have business needs. They are lacking talent. They are lacking women in senior roles, and there is a wage gap. And we really feel like this demographic that opted out yet has institutional knowledge, former business experience, educated, 11 million more women are educated than men from the time period of 2008 to 2013. Wow. So that's all, on the business side, making sure they don't lose access to this tremendous talent.
Yeah.
And then on the candidate side, really, we are a network of support. We are an association of moms, industry mentors, and coaches in your local area that support you kind of through that critical steps in a journey to get you back to your caliber. And we focus on each person's go-to-market strategy. And why I love the soul professional is we're really trying to find that, what is your aspirational goals? How can work match to what you are? And we really work with the candidates to skill them up in the necessary skills for the direction they want to go in, and then match them with companies that really meet that soul aligned purpose, if you will.
I love that. So is it only women that were in the workforce left to raise children or do something else? Or are you retraining people that might not have been in the workforce? and are looking for something now. Maybe they're an empty nester or just something more in life.
Yeah, terrific question. You know, I thought you were going to go in a different direction with that, but we actually do serve, you know, we have a demographic. We serve, you know, women that took a gap, have a gap and need those skilling up, but we also have women with currency in their skills and experience. They're a hot commodity, but they can no longer work 70 hours a week, travel internationally, travel nationally while they have a 3 and a 5-year-old. So they're in what we call the messy middle. And to take that alliteration a little further, you know, the stay-at-home Sarah has been home for 5 years, needs that re-education. Opt-out Olivia is, you know, wants out of that, feels like she's failing in both things, like many of us did years ago when there wasn't the possibility to be flexible and you had to go cold turkey. Now we're trying to tell them there are flexible opportunities. So when we match companies, we're always companies with candidates. We're always seeking what is that flexibility that's going to let them stay in the game and so their skills don't dissipate. And then, as you said, transition Terry, she stayed in the game, but toned down her ambition because she was picking up at 4:30 and not taking those reach assignments. And now she needs to rebrand herself. And this is her time for her power career. She's paying for 3 kids' educations. She has, you know, empty nesters. Her kids are in college or about to go to college. And it's time to get on that glide path so she can make, you know, the return on investment of her education.
Yeah. So this, I love it. I mean, we've met through a mutual friend and it was incredible. I know that we're going to do something together in the future. I just feel it. So
I might have an idea.
Yeah, awesome. We'll talk about that. Can you share a moment maybe as you were creating this that you didn't feel like you had it all together? Because I think it's so important for entrepreneurs that they have these amazing ideas. Like what you do is so unique. Right? You brought it to the world. You had a different career. You had this great idea and you launched it. You're doing it. Right? And there's always times with every entrepreneur, I don't care where you are, there's these great ups and there's these great downs. So can you just share some of that journey and maybe a time when you didn't feel like you had it all together and, you know, maybe a moment where you're like, yeah, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing?
Oh, you just hit on something big, but as you were asking the question, there's a couple. I mean,
okay.
All of them.
We all have them.
Yeah. Well, number one, I didn't want to share that I was a stay-at-home mom. Like I was hiding that. I didn't even want in the article. I'm like, how did that get out there? Like to my professional colleagues that I had esteemed relationships with, I didn't want to go on LinkedIn and say I wasn't working. And so many moms don't want to do that. And it really steps to one of our main missions is to increase our community's value or perceived value of motherhood and parenting. I myself, even in writing this article, had this idea of reminding me of how I devalued motherhood, even though I knew I wanted to do it, thought I was doing a good job, was all in focused on it. I didn't apply the skills I had as program management, project management. I'm like, women have been doing this since the early centuries. Why would we need to apply these tools? Yet I really wasn't getting it together even as a mom because of the logistics required today. And, you know, 3 kids in 3 different sports and 3 different towns and things of that nature. And I felt like I wasn't even rocking it as a mom. And I stepped out from this, you know, power career. We laughed at that. But then the other thing is that this is not real. That when I was launching this business, the idea of, you know, it's a passion project, it's not a real business. I couldn't, you know, moms don't want to spend money on themselves because they're not earning money. I mean, I remember the first time I wanted to get an article, I'd done a lot of, they're called voice of the customer or discovery sessions with clients. And I interviewed the head of Blue Cross Blue Shield. And, you know, I was in the insurance capital and he was giving me all this advice and what moms could be doing, you know, those with educated professionals in that healthcare industry that were at their MBA level, things of that nature. And he's like, you got to read this article by The Economist. And the only way I could get it was to pay for it. And that was like a monumental thing, that this is a real business because I'm going to pay for this solely for the reason that I'm doing this business.
Right.
And giving myself that justification a lot aligned well with our moms that want to go back to work, but don't feel they can even spend the time to invest in themselves at events that are going to focus on their resume or their interview skills and things of that nature. They feel like kind of they're stealing time from their family, and it's not warranted. So all that, but the last, thing that you asked, one of the things when I went to a networking session, a pitch night, that kind of thing, I was eager to share this. I had, all this energy to get it out. And I realized afterwards when I got in the car that I had only networked with women at the event. I didn't go up to, other than the lawyer who had invited me that was in my network to go down to Stanford and present. And he wanted to introduce me with someone that was very aligned and passionate about women in the workplace. And other than talking to him, I didn't talk to one male. And I don't know if it was because I had my mom hat on or whatever, but there's those things where you don't feel like you belong in the entrepreneurial space. You don't feel that it's real. And making those decisions of investing in something to make money is hard when you're coming from that perspective.
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I feel that with any entrepreneur, sometimes, especially with unique ideas, like kind of what I say, even what I created, right? You hear a lot of naysayers and a lot of people go like, really? That's a thing?
Yeah, an example, I was on a client call with a Fortune 10 company, and they were introducing it to their colleagues during the pandemic. And they said, in fact, she's made a business out of it. And I'm like, oh, I have.
But I love how you also, not only are you getting women back to the workforce in their skill set, in alignment with who they are, but so many businesses need that skill, need that woman, that had that background. And we had a previous conversation that when I was in not-for-profit, one of the things I always looked for were women out of the workforce. Because I knew their loyalty, I knew their skill set. They usually had professional backgrounds, and they had to manage it around their families. And I knew that they would work really hard and be way more productive in a smaller amount of time. And I ended up having quite a workforce. I think at one time I had like 15 people. I only had one full-time scientist, all working part-time, because I learned that was actually the strongest way to have a workforce. And most of them, not all, but most of them were moms that had to fit it in with a thing. And I could be flexible because I'm a mom of 3. I'm also a single mom, right? So I knew that, games happen, things happen, kids get sick. And I was just like, I don't care. You just figure it out. I know you'll do it.
Yeah, that managed by objective is actually, a prescription for success that myself and a colleague wrote organizational behavior master's thesis in our MBA around telecommuting. And that prescription for success of managing the deliverable, not whether someone's by the water cooler at 7 a.m. or getting their coffee and we really need to re-educate. You knew it. You knew the flexibility was necessary to get the job done with the talent that you needed. And there's 2 misnomers, if you will. And what part of our work is educating those in senior leadership roles who have this vision of A, who a mom is, and B, how work gets done, that we need to change. And that's part of our advancing business, really changing. When we invite companies to our speed interviews, our return to work weeks, where they actually can meet our talent, they walk away and the comments are amazing. Like, I came here with potential roles that this demographic could do, but he's like one COO of a nonprofit said, I'd be embarrassed to put these jobs in front of any of these women. Like, number one, who they are educated, they might have run organizations, been VP of marketing for
Yep.
a large bank, been in New York City, doing, inventing chemical formulas for the largest food manufacturer, doing supply chain management for food industries, things of that nature. So they've had power careers, and they are intellects. And often they come and say, well, we have this receptionist role or this data entry role, and we're educating them in data analytics. We're educating them in cybersecurity. Our skill up programs bring them to current roles so that they're actually coming to the workforce with skills that are maybe even better than the ones you have in your workplace that haven't taken those outside training classes and invested in themselves. So educating them on who they are, but then again, like you said, that work gets done when you give that freedom to manage themselves to the deliverable, as well as their dual priorities. And that's the new term, those with dual responsibilities. Yep. And it could be men and women. And we're advocates that equality at home and degenderizing care of home, degenderizing childcare is the way that we'll get acceptance in the workplace, that you need to leave to make this happen. And it could be a man or a woman, and that we won't get equality in senior roles and break that glass ceiling, because women really that stay in the game suffer a double competitive threat.
Oh, yeah.
Number one, they're likely, either they're the women that opt out and have a gap and can't get that entry point, which is what we work on, the entry point that gets them on the glide path back to the caliber. But when women stay in, they're still, statistics are 85% or so dealing with the home care, the logistics, the medical appointments, the school trips, school reviews. And the men that stay in, if they have a stay-at-home spouse, all that's handled, and they're able to burn the midnight oil. They're able to get the early flight to the important meeting, things of that nature. And there becomes a difference of competitiveness in the workplace, because women can't be all in. So the women that could have the stay-at-home husband then can get to that glass ceiling.
Exactly. Now, have you seen a change now that I feel that there's a big shift going on in the world right now, and people don't want to be in offices. They don't even want full-time jobs. They want, the job itself, but not attached to the hours it needs to get done. Does that make sense? I just feel that there's a different way of doing business today.
For sure. And we welcome it.
Yeah.
On one hand, on the other hand, the stay-at-home Sarah, really, even though I had pioneered telecommuting and did it for years prior in multiple scenarios, this demographic wasn't one who really wanted to combine their home life and their work. They wanted to put their professional suit on and get that pat in the back from the team synergy and have that different flavor, but they needed the flexibility to do that. That's why our trademark program, the Flex Return, is kind of a meet them where they are 3-month program that lets them work flexibly in office or one day at home, whatever, so they can get to 40 hours a week or what's right for them. And it may be 30, but the flexibility and the work where you are has been feasible via technology for so long. I actually was surprised when 2016, I started talking to companies, and they weren't leveraging it for productivity and leveraging it for synergy of work and working within documents, that they had to meet on the document rather than virtually doing it together, which I had been a fan of since Lotus Notes in IBM and KODAK time. And that they weren't streamlining their workflow or even leveraging people in multi-time zones to get things done in a quicker turnaround. Just all of these advantages. But now that they know these advantages, they're still probably not taking advantage of them to their fullest, but it does give flexibility. And those that are work weary, that have, been one thing the information age did was let companies really absorb every worker's time, absorb it to the fullest. So you have these work weary people that want to cut ties in some ways, work from home certain days, things like that, because they're work weary, where number one, our stay-at-home Sarah really is eager to put the pedal to the metal. Even transition Terry really wants to pour it on. And our client companies need to learn that and meet them. But I think that there is that intertwine now, that the workweary people want the flexibility that moms had that are back to the workforce. And we do have, some people just saying, I'm retiring and I want to participate in your program. I want to scale back, from my third level manager. I want to learn something new. What can I skill up in and work flexibility? People retiring from even teaching roles that want to explore a new field. So we do work with a lot of people that want to pivot, take advantage of the technology education that we do, and find a right role for them moving forward in a flexible way.
Wow. Is it open to everyone in the US, or do you have a region? How does that work?
Well, we have, our core business has been Connecticut. And we have, through the years, just by happenstance, businesses that have, anchored in Connecticut, have places elsewhere, businesses that are here that are headquartered in other cities. So we've, had some interesting pockets in Minneapolis, in California, in Texas, North Carolina, New Jersey. Yeah. Now that we do more virtually, we're a virtual first company and worked out of co-working spaces. We have 3 co-working locations in Connecticut, but given the pandemic, a lot of our live meetups have become virtual. Likely they'll stay virtual. We found our return to work speed interviews actually work better virtually. We will have some networking components in the kickoff of them that are live. So given that, we actually have a core of people interested in DC, Atlanta, and we will grow it in multiple cities. But we're focused, our main capability is in Connecticut.
Wow, that's incredible. Incredible. So I want to switch gears and start talking about the book that you just wrote, a beautiful chapter for us. What's the title of your chapter?
It is Launching Untapped Potential, A Passion for Equality.
I love that. And I can't wait to read it. What was your experience writing this chapter for us? Because it's really focused around success as an entrepreneur and some ups and downs you probably had. Mm-hmm. How did you feel? I feel like it's a mental exercise, like in a good way.
Yeah, I really, writing is not my forte. I'm an engineer. So, and exploring and really putting yourself out there is hard. There's really sharing those, what was the impetus for Untapped Potential even, has a couple different angles. And, I really ended up focusing on something that I haven't focused on in prior interviews like this and things of that nature, which really is one of our goals, is to, impact the value of motherhood and parenting, and that it's okay for it to be a period in your career life cycle. And we need to re-educate people in that. And I talked about that more from my perspective. And then really even looking at what advice do I have for people taking their passion and making it into a business. I really got into, let the snowball roll down the hill, like that. If you just get started and have that confidence to get started, if you're solving a problem and leverage, those support systems, it happens that you're putting yourself out there. And my advice focused on, that intrinsic knowing yourself and making sure you are pulling out what is your passion and what are you bringing to market and where does it fit? Because you're going to leverage so much by aligning that with your business and how it works. And then, really then forcing yourself to get out of your box. So that perspective, writing it and meeting the timelines, and all of that was struggling. It's almost like when the deadline's there, then you pour it out.
Yes. A lot of people work that way. You are not alone. And I think that's also an entrepreneurial thing, because our minds are so many places that we work well under pressure. Yeah,
for sure.
I totally get it. Candace, how can people find out more about you and your programs and everything you have going on?
Our main website is the letter U, potential.org. We are a Connecticut Benefit Corp, and you can find support for our businesses that want to take advantage of this valuable talent, and support for women, no matter where they are in their career life cycle, but they're seeking work-life success. So that's upotential.org.
Awesome. And we will have all of your links and bio information in our show notes so people can check that, but just in case they're listening in their car or whatever that is. Thank you, Candace. Thank you so much for being a part of this, telling us about your organization and your entrepreneurial journey, and especially for being a co-author in our book.
Great. Thank you for having me. It's been a great experience.
You are so welcome. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to our show today. For more information about the Soul Professional Movement, you can go to soulprofessional.com. This podcast is sponsored by the Natural Life Business Partnership, a global professional organization for the soul-aligned entrepreneur. If you live in a higher vibration, have an alternative approach to business, and want to help repair the world, come join us at our next meet and greet, and you can find that next date at soulprofessional.com. All right, everyone. Bye-bye.